When my husband passed away, I hid a 17 million fortune and revealed an incredible truth. The quiet of the afternoon enveloped Sarah like a thick fog, heavy and suffocating. She sat on the floor of the attic, surrounded by boxes cluttered with Tom's old belongings. It felt like excavating the ruins of her own heart. The fleeting memories tugged at her, each item a bittersweet reminder of the man who had been her anchor. But it was the leather-bound ledger, dust-covered and hidden, that turned her world upside down. As she flipped through the pages, disbelief gripped her. $17 million? It was impossible. Tom, the humble mechanic who always put others before himself, had built a fortune while she remained blissfully unaware, believing in their modest lifestyle. The revelation felt like a betrayal, twisting her insides into knots. How could he hide this from her? As she read about his silent philanthropy, the plans for projects that never saw the light of day, Sarah felt a storm of emotion boiling within her. Waves of anger and confusion tugged at her heart, threatening to pull her under. She wasn't just grieving Tom, she was grappling with the unfairness of their life together. Why hadn't he shared this with her? Why now, after he was gone? Before she could wrestle with her thoughts any further, her mind shifted to the town of Maple Grove, their tight-knit community. The same people who had embraced Tom as one of their own now seemed poised to judge her. If she revealed this hidden wealth, would they see her as a benefactor or simply a greedy widow wanting to exploit Tom's name? A single breath felt like an agonizing effort. The pressure mounted. Townsfolk could be unforgiving, whispers of betrayal could easily turn to glares of disdain. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sarah's heart raced as she tried to imagine the town hall meeting where she would present all of this. She could already hear the skeptical murmurs, see the narrowed eyes of neighbors who would question her sincerity. This wasn't just a personal moral dilemma, it felt like a ticking time bomb of community scrutiny. The weight of Tom's dreams pressed down on her, a constant reminder of what she stood to lose: his hope for a better Maple Grove, and their family's future security. The anguish reached a breaking point when she thought of not revealing his plans. Could she live with herself, burying Tom's altruistic intentions beneath her own fears? Would she sacrifice his legacy for the sake of her comfort? A chilling thought gripped her. Could it be, after all, that her grief was veiling a deeper greed, one she refused to acknowledge? With every passing moment, tension crackled in the air, setting her nerves alight. The decision weighed heavier than any responsibility she had ever shouldered. As Sarah stood, trembling with uncertainty, she realized she was at a precipice. The ledger still clutched in her hand, ready to determine not just her fate, but the legacy of the man she loved more than life itself, and the potential fate of her once beloved town. Would courage prevail over fear, or would she allow the shadows of guilt to swallow her whole? The answer hung suspended, leaving Sarah standing on the edge of a chasm she could neither ignore nor face. Sarah closed her eyes, taking a deep breath as she sat back against the hard wooden floor of the attic. The ledger felt heavy in her lap, a sacred text that bore the weight of Tom's unfulfilled dreams. It would be so easy to shove it back into its dust-covered box and numb herself in a cocoon of memories, but she fought against that instinct. Deep within her heart, she understood that ignoring this truth would only deepen her sorrow. Life had dealt her an unchanged hand after Tom passed, yet now the stakes felt higher than ever. She could choose to shy away, allowing fear of the unknown to dictate her actions, or she could step up, confront the shadows of doubt, and embrace the potential for transformation. The knot in her stomach twisted tighter as she contemplated her next move, and this time, the pressure wasn't just external, it was deeply internal, an awakening within that clamor to break free. Standing slowly, purpose ignited in her chest, she realized the breadth of Tom's vision. The man she'd loved had not simply been a mechanic, he'd been a thinker, a dreamer who believed in the promise of a better community. Holding the ledger aloft, it was as though she could hear his voice whispering encouragement. She could feel the pulse of his ambition thrumming through the fragile pages. His aspirations had not been limited to their modest lifestyle, They encompassed something grander, a transformative purpose that now rested upon her shoulders. Sarah began to sift through the research notes and plans Tom had painstakingly documented. Each project was detailed meticulously, from funding proposals to lists of donors he had quietly garnered. Adrenaline coursed through her veins as she envisioned how these funds could breathe life into Maple Grove, scholarships for local kids, revitalizing the park, creating community programs that fostered connection. With this knowledge came not just the responsibility of stewarding Tom's legacy but an opportunity for her to forge her own identity apart from the grief that had dominated her life since his death. Yet, with empowerment came trepidation. Was she equipped to handle not just the money, but the judgment that would ensue? Sarah leaned against the peeling attic wall, the tension palpable. Fear had always been her closest companion since Tom's passing, and it lingered like a shadow at dusk, waiting for a moment of weakness. But this fear felt different, tinged with a spark of determination. What bothered her the most was still the notion of community perception. Would she be that greedy widow? The potential for judgment loomed large over her intentions, but she knew how she had to frame this not as an individual seeking gain, but as a custodian of Tom's legacy. She would honor his altruism and recognize her new role in a way that aligned with the values Tom had embodied. Drawing a deep breath, Sarah resolved to confront the community. She would not hide away, she had to speak up, to take the first step toward actualizing Tom's long-term vision. It was no longer just about the money, it was about reclaiming her agency and redefining her identity as she stepped into this new chapter of her life. The burgeoning clarity within her ignited excitement, but one thought crept back to taunt her. How would she frame her narrative? How could she ensure that the voice of skepticism brewing in Maple Grove would be resisted, letting truth illuminate associations between love, trust, and integrity? With this resolve steeled within her, Sarah grasped the ledger tightly, a beacon summoning her forward. She was ready to embrace the uncertainty. But she would soon realize that stepping into the role of a benefactor could come with unexpected consequences, and she needed to uncover the hidden testimonials of her deceased husband's life that could fuel her intentions. The following night, the air crackling with uncertainty, the meeting loomed before her like a storm on the horizon. It felt as if every ounce of her newly kindled spirit would be tested, and she couldn't shake the feeling that this journey was just beginning. The moment had come to face those whom she could very well alienate or unite, depending on the path she chose to take. With a flicker of doubt still flickering in the recesses of her mind, Sarah stood at the door, ready to step into an unknown future, armed with her heartfelt resolve. Would she be met with open arms or cold stares? As anticipation coursed through her veins, she knew she was about to find out. The hall was dimly lit, a faint buzz of murmurs swirling through the air like smoke, thickening the uncertainty in Sarah's throat. She stood at the entrance, her heart thundering in her chest, a metronome of impending anxiety. Each step forward felt like a declaration of war against the inertia that had shackled her since Tom's death. In that moment, she was not merely a grieving widow, she was a vessel for his dreams, poised to confront the judgments that loomed ahead. She took a deep breath and crossed the threshold, meeting the eyes of familiar faces. Some were sympathetic, their gazes laced with compassion, but others glinted with skepticism. Sarah felt their scrutiny, the weight of their unspoken questions pressing down on her like a heavy cloak. Could she genuinely harness what Tom had left behind, or would she fold beneath their scrutiny? As she decided against the small talk that often signaled an avoidance of deeper issues, Sarah forged ahead. "Thank you all for coming," she started, her voice quivering before settling into a steadiness she didn't fully feel. "I know this meeting might come as a surprise, and it certainly feels that way to me, too." Looking around the room, Sarah noticed how each familiar face was framed by memories intertwined with Tom's legacy: friends, neighbors, even the bakery owner whose father had been Tom's mentor. She envisioned Tom's warmth radiating through the memories, but it felt futile now. She needed to project her own strength, cultivated through sleepless nights and whispered doubts. "I've had time to reflect on what he aimed to accomplish and how much potential lies hidden in our community, potential that I believe we can unlock together." As she spoke, adrenaline surged and ignited her words. Tom envisioned a future of opportunities. Their expressions shifted slightly, curiosity piqued, her words surged forth like a river breaking through a dam, expressing visions of scholarships, park renovations, and adult education programs, the very dreams that had floated in Tom's latent thoughts. The ledger containing these passions felt like an anchor, rooting her in the reality of their shared aspirations. However, she could feel eyes narrowing. But what do you gain from this? A voice, tough and skeptical, cut through her fervor. Sarah swallowed hard, grappling with the underlying accusation. It wasn't just fear of judgment she faced, it was a confrontation with her integrity. Nothing, she asserted, drawing the room's attention. This isn't for me. It's about our children and this community. I cannot grasp the complexities of their experiences from a past of silence. She paused, her heart pounding as she caught a flicker of acknowledgement on a couple of faces. As she immersed herself in the discussion, arguments and counterarguments volleyed back and forth, akin to a high-stakes match. She felt her confidence swell and wane. Questions persisted like gnawing doubts. Was she truly worthy of carrying Tom's vision forward? Could she stand against the tides of uncertain perception? In time, voices softened. Ideas blossomed as she outlined her plans, making connections with those who had once been mere strangers. The realization hit her like a thunderclap. Her determination could inspire collective energy, forging new bonds. But that spark could also ignite flames of hatred from those unwilling to wrestle with change. The evening wore on and tension lingered as arguments edged closer to resolution, yet acknowledgement felt fleeting. Faces transformed, and where once had been skepticism surfaced intrigue, but there remained a palpable rift of uncertainty. Was this endeavor truly about community, or was it merely another opportunistic ploy? As Sarah exited the gathering, exhilaration was tinged with anxiety. She had taken crucial steps toward honoring Tom, yet shadows of doubt still taunted her, fear that what lay ahead could consume her. The path ahead was still cluttered with challenges, the kind that demanded not just resilience but also strategic maneuvering, with the weight of every interaction. Settling into her mind, Sarah turned toward her car, determined to pursue the unearthing of Tom's life. What stories lay untold that could further solidify her intentions? Had her husband truly captured those secrets within the ledger that might shift perceptions entirely? As she drove away, the night felt charged with possibility, but uncertainty danced at the edges of her vision, whispering of obstacles yet to unfold. Would digging into Tom's life reveal truths that could uplift her narrative, or would it unveil something darker that could unravel everything she'd hoped to build? She set her gaze resolutely on the road ahead, ready to meet what awaited her in the shadows. The sound of tires crunching over gravel felt almost comforting as Sarah maneuvered through the familiar streets, her hands gripping the steering wheel as though it were a lifeline. She had navigated these roads countless times, but tonight they felt different, charged with possibility and laced with anxiety. The ledger lay heavy in her mind, a symbol of the dreams it contained and the burdens they imposed. As she arrived home, the familiar sight of her house sent a jolt of nostalgia racing through her. Dust motes floated in the beams of moonlight shooting through her living room window. It was as if the house was waiting for her to breathe life back into it, to transform this space filled with memories into a sanctuary of forward momentum. Pulling the ledger from the passenger seat, Sarah traced its leather-bound spine with her fingertips, a tactile reminder of her husband's hopes. She settled onto the couch, opening the ledger as the pages whispered secrets long hidden. Her eyes flickered across Tom's meticulous handwriting, which spiraled across the pages as if they were imbued with a life of their own. Each word felt like an echo of his determination, urging her to carry the weight, not evade it. "Why didn't you tell me?" she murmured aloud, frustration growing. There was a vastness in Tom's notes, an undercurrent of ambitions she was only beginning to grasp. Scholarships, mentor programs, and an entirely new vision for the community had surged forth like a tide, but entwined within those dreams lay unresolved questions. The biggest one gnawed at her. What had he kept hidden, and why? As she flipped through the pages, one entry caught her eye, a list of names, dates, and corresponding notes. It hinted at more than small projects and intentions. They felt like connections, lives he had touched, dreams he had ignited. Each name weighed like a secret, demanding to be uncovered. But who were these people to him? Were they allies or adversaries? This led Sarah down another avenue of thought. Was Tom's legacy interwoven with darker undertones? Instinctively, she felt an urgency build within her, akin to a hunter stalking unsure prey. She couldn't let fear cripple her ambition. If she wanted to unearth the truth of Tom's work, she had to confront whatever shadows lay hidden beneath the surface, resolutely, she reached for her laptop and began searching for the names in the ledger. One name stood out, a community activist known for pushing for change, yet often at the center of local controversies. What were Tom's ties to this person? Did it spell trouble? She noted the address and resolved to pay a visit. Driven by a mix of trepidation and determination, she planned to confront this new ally, potentially an adversary. Sarah understood that stepping into this realm of complexity could change everything, but it could also establish her as the rightful custodian of Tom's legacy, or perhaps reveal motives that would cast doubt on everything she believed. The walls of her home felt both a comfort and a prison as she immersed herself in research. Progress seemed to slow, the hours slipping away as she became absorbed into her task. Each click of her keyboard felt like a drumbeat, urging her on toward the confrontation she had willed herself to navigate, but with each discovery, the tension swelled. What awaited her was buried not just in Tom's legacy but in the intricate web of relationships he had spun. Would she find allies to uplift her, or would she confront a history that could unravel her intentions before she even took a step forward? The question loomed ominously as she prepared for the journey ahead. Would the truth liberate her, or lock her into a narrative she had never asked to become part of? Gripping the sides of the desk, Sarah stared at the screen, her mind a tempest as she braced herself for what was to come. It was time to face whatever lay hidden. As dawn broke, splashing light through the window, Sarah felt an unsettling calm envelop her. The shadows of the night had withdrawn, but the weight of the ledger still loomed heavily. Armed with her printed notes and a resolve she barely understood, she prepared for the visit that would unspool everything she thought she knew. The drive to the community activist's office seemed to take forever. With each mile, waves of anxiety surged. Sarah debated her approach. Should she introduce herself softly, under the guise of a widow seeking clarity, or should she assertively lay out her intentions? A combination of both felt like walking a tightrope. One misstep and the entire plan would unravel. She parked in front of a modest structure, its facade weathered but resilient, much like the mission it housed. The activist's name, Angela Reed, was etched in vibrant paint on a wooden sign out front, surrounded by flyers depicting local struggles and triumphs. As Sarah stepped out of the car and inhaled the crisp air, she realized the enormity of her task. Angela was not just a name on a list, she was a person with her own motivations and experiences. The very thought invoked a flurry of thoughts about her husband's connections, possibly rooted in a world far more complicated than Sarah had anticipated. Squaring her shoulders, she pushed open the door. Inside, the atmosphere buzzed with energy. Posters adorned the walls, chronicling battles fought and victories won, countered by relentless challenges. The smell of coffee wafted through the air, mingling with the sharp scent of ink and paper. As she approached the front desk, the receptionist looked up, surprised but quickly composed. "Hi, can I help you?" "I'm looking for Angela Reed," Sarah replied, striving to keep her voice steady. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but the receptionist's skeptical glance forced Sarah to swallow down the uncertainty bubbling within her. Determined, she pressed forward. "I'm a personal acquaintance of Tom Baker. I believe he had business with Ms. Reed." At the mention of Tom's name, the receptionist's demeanor softened slightly. "Please take a seat. I'll see if she can make some time." The seconds ticked away like hours as Sarah sat, her hands knotted in her lap. Memories flashed through her mind, images of Tom lost in thought as he navigated the intricate schemes of change he wished for their community. A mix of pride and fear enveloped her. She couldn't help but wonder if she was fully prepared to unearth the reality behind those dreams he had nurtured. Moments later, Angela emerged through a door at the back, her presence commanding yet approachable. Her eyes bore the wisdom of someone who had endured struggles and emerged bearing scars and stories. As they locked gazes, something stirred within Sarah, a flicker of understanding. "Mrs. Baker," Angela greeted, her voice firm yet warm. "I hear Tom has passed. I'm very sorry for your loss." "Thank you," Sarah replied, clenching her fists to prevent them from trembling. "I found his ledger when going through his things. It led me here." "His ledger?" Angela's brow furrowed with curiosity. Tom had a vision, one that many didn't fully grasp. "What do you want to know?" The words, fueled with raw emotion, spilled from Sarah. "I need to understand what he was trying to do, and why he didn't tell me everything. Angela's expression shifted as she studied Sarah, as if weighing all that was unspoken. Sometimes truths are buried for a reason. They can be self-protective or indicative of a more complex reality. Are you ready for that? The intensity of Angela's inquiry hung in the air, underlined by mutual acknowledgement. In this moment, Sarah recognized an unexpected burden and obligation to confront not just her husband's choices, but also her own motives in pursuing this legacy, all on her own. As uncertainty threatened to creep back in, she steadied herself. The truth would propel her forward, but it might also push her to reconcile with parts of her life she hadn't fully accepted. Ready or not, I have to know. Will you help me? Angela hesitated, and the weight of that pause felt like a whisper of foreboding. Let us talk, Sarah. But be warned, you might not like everything you hear. The shadows of Tom's past started taking form, and Sarah knew one thing for certain: the quest for the truth was going to unravel everything she thought she understood. But as they settled into a group of mismatched chairs, the heavy weight of the ledger still loomed in Sarah's mind. Would the answers serve as a balm, or unleash chaos into her life? As words began to flow between them, the mystery of Tom's legacy and the choices ahead became intertwined, setting the stage for all that was yet to be revealed. The air thickened with unspoken words as Sarah and Angela exchanged glances, the silence heavy with anticipation. Sarah felt time holding its breath, waiting for the first of many revelations to break the surface, intertwined with her own creeping sense of dread. The chair beneath her felt less like a seat and more like a pedestal upon which she would eventually need to rise and declare her truth. Tom's ledger isn't just a collection of names and numbers, Angela began cautiously, her voice carrying the weight of experience. It's a map. A map? Sarah echoed, confusion mixing with curiosity. Angela leaned forward, her fingers dancing lightly on the desk, as if tracing invisible lines. A map to understanding the complexity of our community's struggles, the injustices buried beneath daily life. Tom had connections that could change things, but more importantly, he had dreams that only you can clarify now. As Angela's voice unfurled, Sarah felt herself both drawn in and pushed away by the enormity of Tom's untold aspirations. A myriad of emotions coursed through her: pride, anger, sadness, as she mentally flipped through her memories of their life together, searching for clues in the mundane. Why had he kept this from her? What was he planning? She asked, desperation seeping through her veneer of stoicism. The question hung in the air like a dare, both inviting and frightening. Through the ledger, he sought to empower individuals, to build coalitions, to challenge the status quo. Angela's eyes sparkled with fervor. But with power comes danger, and Tom understood that very well. It's why he kept it close, why he only let bits slip during quiet moments. Questions cascaded in Sarah's mind, forcing herself to focus. You knew him better than I did. Did he fail? Was this all in vain? Angela's look was one of empathy, paired with a hint of regret. No, Sarah. It was not in vain. The very fact that you are here means he succeeded in laying the foundation of change. A weight lifted slightly yet morphed into another type of pressure. If she was to carry on Tom's legacy, she would need to confront her own fears and insecurities. The dawn of clarity began to break within her, illuminating the craggy cliffs of self-doubt she had navigated for so long. She had always been Tom's support, the quiet strength behind his ambitions, but could she transform her support into action? Will you help me decipher this map? Sarah's words were suddenly strong, sounding foreign yet empowering in her own ears. Angela regarded her with renewed intensity, the corners of her mouth lifting slightly. You display a fire reminiscent of Tom. We'll need to pivot from reminiscing to action. I need more than just explanations, I need direction, Sarah declared, her confidence surprising herself. Angela nodded, urgency replacing the initial caution. Good. Start here, with Tom's most recent contacts and the key projects he was involved in. We'll reach out, but understand, some doors may remain closed. Not everyone is ready to discuss what's hidden. The heavy ledger was no longer just a burden, it became a compass of sorts, fueling her determination to not only face her husband's past but to carve out her own identity as a figure of change. As Sarah scheduled their first meeting for the next day, anxiety morphed into anticipation. They discussed strategies, possible contacts, and methods to begin network calls. Each brief touchpoint stirred a growing sense of purpose that overpowered the initial hesitation, yet shadowed memories of Tom persisted, reminding her that this wasn't simply a mission, it was a resurrection of shared dreams reclaimed. Before long, they were plotting somewhere between the ambitious and the absurd, chasing threads that could unravel long-standing injustices. Sarah realized she was at the threshold of not merely reclaiming the past, but of discovering her untapped potential and strength. "Tomorrow, we begin a new chapter," Angela said, her voice firm with certainty. Sarah could feel it beneath the surface, urgency mingling with trepidation. A sense of aching knowledge loomed before her as she imagined what lay ahead. But was she ready for the resistance she might face? As the sky deepened into twilight, Sarah gathered herself, convinced that the choices she would forge would echo her husband's legacy. With resolve igniting within her soul, she knew tomorrow would mark the dawn of something both beautifully terrifying and tragically inevitable. The time had come to face the reality of what she had uncovered, and the consequences of this choice might shift the very dynamics of her life. Would she rise to meet the challenge, or would fear dictate her next steps? The morning light filtered through the blinds, casting stripes across Sarah's desk. Each beam illuminated the heavy ledger she had laid out the night before, a stark reminder of the task ahead. As she sipped her coffee, she felt a sense of resolve cementing within her. This was her moment to step beyond the shadows of her husband's legacy and carve her own path. With the echo of Angela's encouragement ringing in her ears, Sarah opened the ledger. The rows of names and figures began to shift from static ink and paper into living connections, potential allies, and stories waiting to unfold. She hesitated, though, as a wave of doubt washed over her. How could she engage with these individuals? What kind of leader could she possibly be without Tom by her side? "Focus," she whispered to herself, challenging the familiar inner voice that mocked her uncertainty. If she was to do this, she must first confront her deep-seated fears. Sarah knew that courage was not the absence of fear but the ability to act in spite of it. As she meticulously documented the first names, community organizers, activists, and business contacts, her heart raced with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Each name held meaning, a thread in the complex tapestry Tom had woven. But then, she stumbled upon a name that sent a shiver down her spine: Marty Reynolds. A figure shrouded in controversy, known for his ruthless tactics and history of backdoor deals, he was not someone Sarah wished to engage. Yet, part of Tom's vision hinged on confronting figures like him. "Do I really want to open that door?" she asked herself, recalling Angela's warnings. The thrill of potential colliding with the dread of confrontation. But avoiding Marty would mean shying away from progress, from the very change Tom had dreamed of. She took a deep breath, resisting the urge to close the ledger and retreat. Sarah had to operate in realms beyond her previous experiences. She wouldn't just be a supporter anymore, she had to cultivate herself as an agent of change. By the time Angela arrived, Sarah had a rough outline of her strategy. As they reviewed the recent contacts, Angela noted the challenges ahead, prodding Sarah to think critically about her approaches. Each plan was a test of her leadership, forcing her to grapple with the complexities of each individual involved. "Sarah, each conversation is a seed," Angela encouraged. "Some will sprout into powerful alliances, while others might wither away. You learn to discern what will grow into something meaningful." "I feel like an imposter, scrambling to keep up with Tom's vision," Sarah admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Imposter syndrome is a common struggle for any leader. It's a reminder that you're stepping into unfamiliar territory. Use it to propel you forward, Angela replied, her eyes firm. The weight of those words struck deep, causing Sarah to reflect. She had never envisioned herself as a leader, content to amplify Tom's voice rather than wield her own. Yet now, those elements were entwined. As they strategized over phone calls, emails, and meetings, Sarah felt a flicker of determination kindling. She wouldn't just be a mouthpiece for Tom's dreams. She would give them new life. Their first call was scheduled with Daniel Wu, a local business owner known for his philanthropy, a promising ally, offering an avenue to influential networks. Setting the time, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. This was a substantial first step. However, a voice in her head began to echo her insecurities once again. What if Daniel wasn't interested? What if he dismissed her as simply Tom's widow? What if she failed? Hello, goal-oriented Sarah. Are you letting fear creep back in? She challenged herself, trying to channel her determination. With a forced breath, she leaned into her thoughts, resisting the urge to undermine herself. I can do this. I will prove not only my capabilities but also what Tom's dreams mean to those whose lives they will touch. Yet beneath her burgeoning confidence lay a nagging uncertainty. Was she truly ready to transform herself into a beacon of change? As their meeting hour approached, anticipation transformed into electric energy coursing through her veins. The moment was finally upon her, opportunity knocking, and she knew she had to answer. Yet, even as she started to dial, something shifted within the depths of her mind. If bringing Tom's vision to life meant confronting figures like Marty, what other hidden obstacles lurked in the shadows, waiting to disrupt her pursuit? With her finger hovering over the call button, the weight of her decision loomed, a balancing act between taking action and confronting untold risks. Tomorrow might forge the path ahead, but today, she stood at the precipice of truth. What awaited her once the line connected? Would clarity emerge, or would chaos reign? The phone rang twice, then Daniel's warm voice broke through the static. Hello, this is Daniel Wu. Hi Daniel, it's Sarah, Tom's wife, she managed to say, her heart pounding audibly in her chest. She could hear the hesitation hanging in the air like a thick fog. An introduction she had dreaded turned into a bridge of possibilities. Of course. It's good to hear from you, he said, his tone balancing cordial and curious. A soccer ball bounced against concrete in the background, children playing somewhere in his neighborhood. It felt like a metaphor for her own state of mind. She had never been on this field, but now she was. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me, Sarah continued, trying to maintain her composure. I wanted to discuss some opportunities in our community that align with Tom's vision. As she outlined her thoughts, the words flowed with an unexpected clarity. She described her aspirations, articulating Tom's objectives with a conviction she didn't know she possessed until that moment. Each point felt like a piece of a puzzle coming together, the abstract notions of purpose transforming into tangible strategies. Sarah, you have a lot of great ideas, Daniel interjected, the enthusiasm in his voice encouraging. Leveraging local businesses for change is impactful, but we have to be mindful of the stakeholders involved. His feedback shifted something in her. The casual chatter turned into a dynamic discussion about resources and networks. While they talked, Sarah found herself questioning, probing deeper into Daniel's insights, rather than allowing her doubts to lead. The imposter creeping in the shadows of her mind felt smaller, almost insignificant next to the rising tide of possibility. May I ask, Daniel's voice grew serious, how do you plan to approach someone like Marty Reynolds? Sarah froze for a moment, the specter of Marty looming larger than ever. The mere mention of his name ignited an internal skirmish of fear and strategic thought. He's a complex player, she stammered, scrambling to answer. But I'll have to confront discomfort for progress. Marty represents the kind of change we need to challenge. Just be careful, Daniel warned, genuine concern lacing his words. Marty doesn't take kindly to being boxed in. Fear prickled at the back of her neck, and she could feel the resistance bubble up in her throat. But she realized Daniel's words weren't meant to discourage her, they were a warning rooted in experience. She needed to understand him, wield information as her weapon, just as Tom would have done. Thanks for the advice, Sarah replied, her tone steadier now. I'll prepare for what it means to engage with him. It won't be easy, but I can't shy away just because it's daunting. That's the spirit, Daniel affirmed. Let's keep the lines open. I'd like to continue supporting your initiatives. As they closed the call, Sarah felt an invigorating surge course through her. It wasn't just about what she wanted to accomplish, it was about building relationships nuanced with respect, courage, and strategy. She was learning what kind of potential she had, evolving from a hesitant player into a formidable contender, but as she set the phone down, Sarah realized that welcoming this transformation came with its own set of intricacies. Just as her confidence solidified, the uncertainty about confronting Marty returned, raw and real. What unwritten rules governed battles with men like him? What strategies hadn't she yet anticipated? She had nudged open the door to a realm of possibilities but sensed that lurking within the shadows beyond it lay tumultuous challenges to her emerging leadership. Determined, she flipped open her ledger once more, her resolve hardening. This journey was hers to navigate, and she would wield her voice unapologetically, yet, the questions remained. How could she prepare for a confrontation with someone whose power thrived on intimidation? With the stakes rising, Sarah was about to step into a game where the rules blurred and the opponents weren't always clear. Would she be ready to face Marty? The time was drawing near, and uncertainty loomed larger than ever as she scribbled her thoughts, a blueprint for the conflict that ripened on the horizon. The flickering candlelight danced across the pages of Sarah's ledger, casting shadows that mirrored her internal struggle. Each flick of the flame matched the rising rhythm of her pulse. She was going to confront Marty Reynolds, but first, she needed to prepare, really prepare. It wasn't just about strategy, it was about the deeper game of psychological warfare that she sensed lay ahead. Her hands moved quickly, jotting down notes that had started to flood her mind after the call with Daniel. What were his weaknesses? Where could she exploit the cracks in his armor? She felt a surge of energy as these thoughts crystallized. For too long, she had been hesitant, standing in Tom's shadow. Now, she was ready to step into the light of her own potential. Determination coursed through her veins. She would gather intelligence, study Marty's routines, dissect his patterns, and watch how he dealt with others. The fear she had felt earlier transformed into strategic motivation. She envisioned herself walking into that boardroom, armed with knowledge and backed by her solidified ideas. She would not only defend Tom's vision but elevate it. But as she continued to outline her plans, her thoughts looped back to the man himself, Marty Reynolds. He wasn't just a businessman, he was a key holder to the kind of change she sought. Dealing with someone who thrived in chaos wasn't simple, and she needed not only a strategy but a philosophy to approach him. Would she lean on compassion, daring to appeal to his sense of responsibility, or would she take the more aggressive stance, forcing him to confront the implications of his actions? As these dilemmas interplayed, Sarah found herself at a moral crossroads. She wanted to honor Tom's philanthropic aspirations, but what if confronting Marty compromised those very ideals? Hours drifted by as she weighed each option mentally and physically, making not just a plan but a checklist of her own values. What was she willing to sacrifice? Would she turn to manipulation if that was what it took? The back-and-forth battle within her began to churn, leading to frustration. Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Daniel. Thinking of you. Remember, your integrity is your greatest tool. Don't lose sight of that as you navigate the next steps. His kind reminder anchored her. She could not let ambition drown her principles. Sarah breathed in deeply, focusing on finding the balance between strategy and morality. After all, it was her integrity that would set her apart from a character like Marty. With renewed clarity, she turned to her ledger again and sketched a bold framework, the kind of approach that showed strength but also emphasized collaboration and respect, two things that might resonate amidst Marty's brash demeanor. Instead of approaching him defensively, she could create a space for dialogue, infusing her objectives with the spirit of compromise. As dawn crept through the window, illuminating her hastily scribbled notes, an unexpected twist emerged in her plans. What if she brought in an ally from the business world, someone who had a history with Marty? That might turn the tides in her favor, granting her the kind of credibility she needed. Excitement bubbled inside her. She felt the gears of her mind turning faster than before. But then, with this newfound direction came another wave of fear. Was she putting too much faith in outside help? What if that backfired? But there was no turning back now. Each step she took transformed her into the leader she had only begun to envision. Empowered, she lifted her pen and drew a line under the chapter of hesitation she had lived in for far too long. From the corner of her desk, the candle flickered one last time before extinguishing. It was time to act. Sarah gathered her notes, her goals coalescing into a single, unwavering vision. The day of reckoning with Marty Reynolds was approaching. Would she have the courage to embody both her ideals and her ambitions when she faced him? Days were dwindling, and Sarah prepared to uncover the depths of her resolve, ready to engage in the intricate duel that awaited, but lurking just behind her newfound confidence was the realization that confronting Marty was only the first step. There was still much she didn't understand about the impending fallout once they clashed. Would she choose the path of compromise or conflict? The stakes grew higher as she faced the possibility of an impending clash that could challenge everything she had fought for. The sun shone brightly the next day, seeming almost a mocking contrast to the storm brewing inside Sarah. She had spent hours in front of the mirror, battling the shadow of doubt that crept in with every reflection that gazed back at her. Today was not just another day, it was the day she would confront Marty Reynolds and lay the groundwork of Tom's legacy. As she stood in front of the community center, her heart pounded with both anticipation and fear. This was the tipping point. Her actions today would resonate through Maple Grove, shaping her husband's vision and altering her own future. The room buzzed with energy, a stark contrast to her previous fears of isolation. The board table was circular, an inviting arrangement, yet it felt like a pressure cooker filled with unvoiced opinions and simmering tensions. Sarah took a deep breath as she walked through the doorway, determination beaming from her. She would showcase Tom's vision not merely as a widow but as a voice for change. Spotting Marty seated at the far end, Sarah felt the weight of his presence, saw the confidence radiating from him as he casually chatted with others. A cold shiver raced through her. He had always been known for his unyielding demeanor and sharp tongue. But as she stepped closer, the specter of fear faded, replaced by the clarity of purpose that had been hard-won through sleepless nights of planning. "Everyone, thank you for gathering today," she began, forcing the tremor from her voice. "I'm here to discuss how we can reinvigorate our community through some initiatives that my late husband, Tom, was deeply passionate about." Murmurs filled the room as eyes turned towards her, whispers exchanged like wildfires igniting doubt. But she pressed on, presenting Tom's dreams as she had rehearsed, infusing each initiative with hope and solidity. Scholarship funds for local students, community renovation plans, and mentorship opportunities were laid out before them, her conviction fueling her words. Then came Marty's voice, drawn like a predator eyeing its prey. "Why should we trust this all comes from your husband?" Many were unaware of his projected vision. Most knew him as a mechanic, not a crusader. The skepticism clawed at her, threatening to almost derail her. But she remembered Angela's wisdom and stood firm. "You're right, Marty." Most viewed Tom in such narrow terms. But that was his genius. If we look only to the surface, we miss the depth. These projects are rooted in love, generosity, and community, elements he fostered even if unrecognized. She watched for reactions. Some faces softened, recognizing the truth, others remained unsure. That recognition began to shift the tides of doubt, igniting a dialogue instead of a defense. They began to discuss, to challenge, and as they did, vigor filled the exchanges, transforming skepticism into possibilities. As she found herself deeper in conversation, Sarah felt an electric current course through her. This wasn't just about Tom's legacy anymore. This was about her reclaiming power, defining her space as a leader who held the potential for a brighter Maple Grove. The meeting evolved into something unexpected, a nexus of ideas that flourished as she and others bounced possibilities back and forth. When Marty proposed a location for the community park refurbishing, Sarah seized the moment. "Let's partner with the local businesses to fund this, and your company could play a major role. What if you could lead the charge, show the community that altruism doesn't negate profitability?" Using her words as a brush, she painted a collaborative picture that captured not just their ambition but their shared humanity, reminding them that through cooperation, they could all emerge victorious. Each suggestion grew bolder, soaking up the defiance of doubt. Marty sat back, his demeanor less predatory, more contemplative. Unbeknownst to her, where once barriers had divided their visions, now burgeoning alliances were formulated. As the meeting concluded, the sense of unity crystallized. There was excitement in pledges, a resonance of shared purpose filling the room. As people began to leave, Sarah wonderfully felt the drainage of her old fears. The weight of Tom's legacy transformed rather than buried. She had not just inherited his vision, she had made it hers. That night, light streamed through her window, unfiltered and bright. She held the ledger close, feeling the dreams and aspirations swirl with deepened sentiment. Sarah had faced Marty and emerged. She had not backed down but rather surged ahead. This was the moment Sarah had been working towards. No longer was she just a bearer of grief, she was an architect of transformation. With renewed confidence, she set her sights on the ensuing projects, crafting momentum that would breathe new life into Maple Grove. The courage she had summoned today had stopped being a flickering flame, now a robust bonfire, one ignited not just for herself but in honor of the life she wished to build in Tom's memory. This newfound understanding of collaboration and leadership solidified her identity, marking the metamorphosis from merely being Tom's wife into a community leader in her own right. She would rise to meet whatever came next. Now was the time, not just for Sarah, but for all who believed in a better tomorrow. Anna's voice broke through her thoughts. Are you ready to build something amazing, Sarah? The community waits for no one. Sarah beamed, realization blooming inside her. Her journey had only just begun. She was ready to embrace whatever came next. And it would be remarkable. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.